What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Live Loud Life podcast. My name is Antonio, your host of the Live Loud Life podcast. Updates, not a lot of updates from our end. When this airs, we're going to be getting pretty dang close to having baby number 4 soon. This will air like early February. We'll have about a month. As I'm filming this, Michelle's about 33 weeks pregnant. We're getting to film some more content around being pregnant. So doing some exercises, some recommendations and or some cueing and some coaching around how to move and whatnot when pregnant. So be on the lookout for some of those. If you're not already following her, most of her content's on Instagram, which I'll put in show notes, but it's Dr._Michelle Gurley. I think I should know that. I apologize. It's just right there on hand, so I never really know what it is. And then also just a couple more just, video style stuff talking about ins and outs. And we haven't decided yet, but we're gonna have a videographer a photographer for birth and videographer. So we'll see, depending on how everything looks, what if anything we'll share out of that. But also, we do want to highlight, because this is a lot of our world, and this is not what we're talking about today. But as a side note, is just ways that we approach labor and delivery. We have a partner's bodywork course, talking about how you as a partner get more involved in helping your pregnant partner with massage and body work to help them not only with their aches and pains, but also their birth preparation. So I'll put the link in the show notes for that as well. It's a free PDF with some videos that tells you what to do, right? And I apologize when I say this, but it's not rocket science. It's put your hands on them, communicate, talk, pressure, so on and so forth. But it has tremendous and profound effects for your pregnant partner. Now, that being said, in a few weeks, come postpartum, Michelle's going to be getting back into working out and training and postpartum recovery, so on and so forth. And one of the big things that we consistently get from people who are wanting to start lifting weights, everyone's like, yeah, I know weightlifting's important, it's good, but I don't want to get bulky. But I want tone muscles, but I don't want to get bulky. But like I want to have some definition, but I don't want to get bulky. And I don't think a lot of people realize what it actually takes to actually get bulky. It takes a lot. So what we wanted to talk about, this is going to be a very, very short episode, but we just wanted to talk about a few of the things that would help you get bulky and or not bulky, depending on what your goals may be. Now, with anything, you have to do some form of resistance training. Resistance training simply means your muscle is loaded and doing some form of work. Now, if anyone has seen some of those street workout guys or calisthenic dudes, they are jacked. Many of them are jacked as can be, and they just use their body weight. Right? And yet they have a lot of definition and a lot of hypertrophy and a ton of strength depending on the goal and task. So when we're talking about these things, like most things, there's many roads to Rome. A lot of research has obviously been performed and done to kind of talk about the best strategies that would help, but there's a lot of factors that go into this. The person itself, recovery time, nutrition, so on and so forth. So the best thing to do is, depending on your goals, is work with the coach if you don't know what to do. Like if you're like, well, I want to lift, but I don't want to get bulky and I'm not sure. Get a coach. Right? You might not have to do a whole program, but there's a lot of coaches out there who just do one-off consultations and just spend an hour with you and kind of walk you through what needs to be done. And if you need some more help, they'll write the program for you, be accountable for you, so on and so forth. But it's showing you can have mass and size and tone and definition in a number of different ways. And another thing to note is so much of this is also just body type dependent. Certain people, their muscles are just shaped a certain way, which gives them a certain amount of definition and look when they do get bigger. Certain people, they just naturally have a lower, a lower body fat percentage just based on sheer genetics, where other people have a slightly higher, you know what I mean? So again, many factors and different things to consider. But what we're going to break down here is just, I'm looking at my notes here, very briefly, a kind of working table set. And again, this is from taking some notes from a number of different resources, certified strength and conditioning manual, different online resources, different research articles that talk about strength and hypertrophy, so on and so forth, and kind of just came down to like, what are all these saying and what are the rough ranges of like sets and reps and intensity, so on and so forth. So we're going to walk through that. Okay. So when we're talking about strength and power, right? Strength and power, in order for you to get stronger, right? And interestingly enough, you don't always have to be bulky with this, but in order for you to get stronger, which a lot of that has to do with neural adaptation as well, is you have to be training at higher intensities. So you're going to be lifting closer to what might be your 1 rep max. Now, for those of you who are saying like, well, I don't know what my 1 rep max is. Well, what we're looking at here is 1 rep max is like an all-out intensity, right? So let's say, for instance, you're doing a squat and we put a weight on and you were only able to do 1 set. Well, that would be your 1 rep max, right? Now you don't necessarily have to go out there and test it, but based on, there's other tables. Actually, I have this here. I have this old clipboard here. Look at this thing. It gives you an idea of what your what your 1 rep max might be based on, maybe being able to do a 3 rep max or a 4 rep max or something like that. So there's a number of different tables out there. This one's just actually on a clipboard, right? There's a number of different tables out there that you can just Google and look at. Is, if I was to lift this amount for this many reps, what would be my estimated 1 rep max? And then you can then implement that information into the program that you're doing, right? Because oftentimes these are based off of percentages of 1 rep max. More sophisticated programs are based on RPE scales, which is rate of perceived exertion, which takes into consideration how you feel that day. So let's say, for instance, you didn't have a good night of sleep or your diet's been off and thus you feel more fatigued and tired. It wouldn't make sense for you to be pushing yourself at that higher level because you might run the risk of injury, and your zone of adaptation, actually that perceived exertion, seems higher than what it should be. Okay. Now that's kind of a separate conversation. But when we're looking at strength training, we are doing upwards of like 75, 80, more to like 85% and higher of your 1 rep max. And you're doing total work sets of 3 to 5 and rep ranges of 1 to 3. So a few other people that we follow talk about not doing any more than 10 reps when you're talking about a strength set. So if I'm going to do back squats, I'm either going to do 2 sets of 5, 5 sets of 2, 3 sets of 3, or you might even do like 10 sets of 1 or 8 sets of 1, right? So you're just doing singles because they're heavy. But again, the emphasis for strength and power is heavy. 80-85% of your 1 RM. Okay. Now, if we go down, functional strength and hypertrophy is what this category is called. People can argue that whatever you want. I don't really care. Is we're looking at strength and hypertrophy, right? So again, the whole term functional kind of gets thrown around a little easy. But what we're looking at is working sets of, again, 4 to 6. So this would kind of be, and people would argue you could do 3 with higher rep range, but we're looking at 4 to 6 sets with ranges of 4 to 6, right? So you're seeing how things start to increase. So if we're on the higher end of doing 6 sets of 6, well, do the math out on that, right? If you're doing 4 sets of 6, if you're doing 5 sets of 5, well, that's 25 reps, which is kind of right in the middle of this, which is a very common functional, again, quote unquote, functional training and hypertrophy type of rep scheme. 5 sets of 5 is an awesome place to be. Now, the key here is you're using intensities of 75-ish% to 85%, right? Some could even argue 70 up to 85. Again, this is nothing written in stone. There's some gray area, but indicating you are now decreasing your intensity in order to be able to perform more reps. And as you're able to perform more reps, you're able to be under load longer. Increasing time under tension not only increases strength, but also hypertrophy. Okay, so a few key points to take away on that. Now, general hypertrophy, this is where, again, you're going to see different things across the board. This is 3 to 5 sets, but 7 to 10 reps. I've I've seen programs and things out there where they're doing 5+ sets and you're doing usually 10, 15 in or 20, but again, depending on what your rep range is. This is general hypertrophy. Training intensity 65 to 75%, and argumentatively could even be lower. But a lot of times what you see for hypertrophy is you have to be doing a ton of reps at still a moderate weight, 60, 65, 70, 75%. A lot of general hypertrophy, though, 75% on that higher end. They're dropping those weights down, still at a very challenging amount, though, but they're getting what we call like a pump. They are maxing out oftentimes that muscle to elicit a growth response, and that growth response is just overloading it really, really well at a manageable level that allows you to just, again, accumulate a lot of reps. And then oftentimes on top of that, they'll do a drop set or a superset where then you're pumping out the muscle even more with the intention that you're then going to recover. You're going to blast a muscle group. This is where you often see like chest day, back day, leg day, push day, press day, whatever that might be, because you're maxing out a certain body part or a region, and then you're giving it multiple days of rest. Okay, that's a key factor here, where most of us who are wanting to get strong tone and not bulk, we're doing stuff every single day. If you were to take this approach, you wouldn't be able to do it. You'd be running the risk of injury and overloading within the first 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And so we have to look at this from what are we trying to elicit here, and how do the sets and rep ranges break down based on the intensity that you're doing to actually elicit bulking. Now, one of the things we did not go into great detail here, but is you have to then supplement with nutrition, not supplementations itself, but supplement this program of lifting with nutrition. You have to fuel the muscles with the necessary building blocks, which is a lot of protein, in order to elicit muscle growth. Sometimes people will throw things on there such as BCAAs and creatine to allow you to work out more, to elicit a greater growth response, so on and so forth. This is not a nutrition talk today, though. But what we're indicating is most people are not eating enough protein as it is, let alone enough protein to elicit hypertrophy within the muscles, giving the muscle actually more protein to build upon. So the moral of the story is it is very unlikely. Now, some people have a body type where they just build muscle, but it is very unlikely that if you're doing just an Orange Theory or you're trying to get in 2 to 3 days of general lifting with lightweight or high reps or even moderate weight, that you are going to bulk up. And if anything, you're going to get more out of that you want, because by increasing lean muscle mass, you actually have this more toned, quote unquote, or cut look without the bulk. So you're actually doing yourself a disservice by not even trying, because even then, let's say, for instance, you did bulk up based on the stimulation that you're giving the muscles. For the majority of us, the moment you stop doing that, your body wants to kind of homeostatically regulate to a point that is like, okay, well, I have enough muscle to do the activities that I want. I have enough body fat. This is kind of the body mass index that I have and the weight that I have based on the activities and the requirements that I'm giving you. You're going to start to lose that muscle if you're not stimulating it. You know what I mean? You'll see bodybuilders year down the road that are still fairly big because they've just done it for so many years. But even then, you see them shrink down a little bit, right? And so you have to keep stimulating that muscle growth or maintaining it if you want to do that. And again, most of us who are wanting to just get toned and fit and a little stronger, you are not going to bulk up. Again, it takes a specific body type, takes a very specific program, as we have already indicated. This is, when I say program, this is not programming. This is like a very, very rough estimate of just how certain things are laid out. If you want to get bigger, you have to take all these factors into consideration: rest, sleep, nutrition, recovery, how many sets and reps that you're doing in total load. Some people actually calculate out on the total week, and then how that rolls over and carries over. You can see how calculated this could be. So you're not going to get bulky. right? But you do need to lift still. Exercise recommended guidelines is at least 2 to 3 days a week where you're actually lifting some weight that makes you grunt a little bit. And there's seasons of life where you go through different phases. Like right now, I'm doing less actual resistance training with kettlebells and barbells, just based on a couple like little tweaks and aches and pains that I have. But I'm trying to break it back down into doing more calisthenic stuff. Now, with calisthenics, what's interesting is if, let's say, for instance, you don't have weights, again, this all comes back down to math. Let's say, for instance, your body weight, and I'm just using a round number of 150 here. And let's say, for instance, you can't do a push-up with 150 pounds. Well, then you would incline that. You would do incline push-ups to reduce the amount of gravitational force that your body actually feels to allow you to do similar sets and reps based on your goals. If it's strength, again, you're only going to do 3 to 5 sets of 1 to 3 rep ranges. So if I want to get stronger within my chest to be able to do bench or a push-up, I'm going to be at a position that allows me to do no more than, well, you could do more, but I'm going to be doing total sets of about 10 reps. So I might be at an incline push-up on a countertop, on a chair, on a bench, and I might do 3 sets of 3, 5 sets of 2, 2 sets of 5, right? A couple times a week, right? And put that into the whole program. So you're seeing how the math is oftentimes the same. It's just then how do you make your body weight either lighter or heavier based on what's available for you, right? So for instance, a bench press on that similar conversation is like, okay, well, I'm stronger than just what my body weight is doing standard bench press. Well, then you would elevate your feet, right? You do a decline push-up, right? You could add tempo, more time under tension, which would elicit a different, it's taking your body weight, but like multiplying it because you're holding it for a longer period of time. So it doesn't have to get complicated, but it does have layers to it, depending again on your goals. Now, for most of you who are listening, based on what we know our audience is again, you're looking at, hey, I have some weights, I have my body weight, I want to do some lifting, I'm not quite sure what to do. That's when, again, I would encourage you either through us or somebody else, find a coach, get some programming done. But if all you took out of this was push, pull, hinge, squat, carry, there's body weight with legs gets a little bit more complicated. Weights are helpful for that. And you take these sets and rep ranges and you start implementing this 2, 3, 4 times a week, you're going to see some positive results. Now, as we indicated in the last episode talking about goals, is if you're not getting the results, well, you need to either change the math, change the techniques, change math sets and reps, change the technique, change what equipment you might have, in order to make your life easier, is, invest in a coach to help you out. Okay. There is not a shortage of health and fitness and personal trainers out there. I guarantee you that. So I hope this was helpful, because I know many people are kind of worried about, again, I don't want to get bulky. I want tone. I want cut. I want stronger, right? Sometimes you don't get a choice on that. Just focus on more about function. How do you feel? How do you look to a certain degree? That's always important, right? But do I have less aches and pains? Do my joints and my body, does it operate the way that I want it to when I want it to? Like, those are extremely important and oftentimes more critical factors than worrying about a couple extra pounds of muscle mass or something here and there. So keep lifting, keep training, keep running, keep playing, keep jumping, keep loving. Live loud, guys.